Hello and welcome, Stargazers APM, your intrepid star guide and cosmic detective, and this is another episode of the Outlaw Astrology Podcast. This is episode 157, and we are talking about the Beyond, the Golden Dawn series, where we continue to dismantle the inherited dogma, question astrological assignments, and build correspondences that reflect lived mystical experience rather than Victorian occult orthodoxy. Today's focus will be on the Hermit, the Wheel of Fortune and Justice through a critical contemporary lens, examining the Golden Dawn assignments, exploring alternatives and personal correspondences that honor solitude, fate and balance beyond simplistic moral frameworks. But first, a little housekeeping. The series assumes familiarity with the Golden Dawn basics, which you can find in my archive of the Outlaw Astrology. I have gone over the Golden Dawn basics, and you are free to scroll down if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, etc. And those episodes will be just before this one, okay? And so I'm inviting you to become an intellectual outlaw mystic. Someone who respects lineage but refuses stagnation, who thinks dangerously and critically but builds their own sacred architecture. And so our media hangouts are, you can find the podcast on YouTube, yay, and on Spotify also yay, and Apple Podcasts, yay. The Outlaw Astrology is on Instagram, and we have a Pinterest page. In addition to the newsletter called the Daily Stargazer, free and paid versions, there are an archive of over 500 posts and 80 plus podcast episodes with more to come. I post weekly, sometimes twice a week, so there's always going to be good stuff there. Feel free to pop on by and have a look. And this podcast episode and others in the series are free. So you'll be getting a condensed, concentrated form of this podcast in written form if you're interested in reading it rather than just listening to it. Thank you very much for listening. And now, onward. And hello and welcome back. Thank you very much for taking time to listen to me today. And let's step on into it. We're talking about Hermit, Virgo, or the sovereign solitude of the seeker. That sounds so poetic. So, let's review the Golden Dawn assignment. The Hermit equals Virgo, as in introspection, discernment, analytical solitude, refinement through withdrawal, and earthly practicality in spiritual pursuits. So, let's acknowledge the resonance, shall we? So, Virgo, connection to service, discernment, and humble devotion, fits certain aspects of the Hermit, the idea of withdrawing to refine one's practice, to analyze, to integrate before returning to the outside world. But since we are intellectual outlaw mystics, let's question deeper. Is the Hermit truly about Virgo's practical service orientation, or is it more of a profound liminal solitude, the dark night of the soul, the quest for ultimate truth, the withdrawal from worldly concerns rather than preparation for better service? Now, a caveat here. I loathe paeans to service, to gratitude, and etc. from the self-help realm. Why? Because they usually are performative. They have me performing gratitude rather than it naturally occurring and arising from the situation, which does not work for me, never does. Service can be hijacked to exploit people, and having us exploit others and extract from others, which is why I don't like those words, and I have no idea why I chose them, but anyway, we're going to move on. Just thought I'd note that. So let's explore some alternatives, shall we? Saturn, solitude through necessity, wisdom earned through isolation and time, the elder who walked alone. That elder who walked alone, that speaks to certain parts of my astrological chart. Capricorn, the mountain climb, the ambitious spiritual ascent, mastery through discipline and withdrawal. Asteroid, let's call it planetoid Chiron, the wounded healer who must retreat to find wisdom. How about fixed star algo? Now, I don't think I've gone into fixed stars deeply. That is going to be a series for the near future. But fixed stars, basically, they don't move as much in proximity to our vantage point on Earth. And these stars exist as part of constellations. Algo, you're going to hear about a lot. You can do a simple search, internet search, and you will find all the information about it. But the star algo is about confronting the shadow, seeking truth in darkness. Now, in my case, I've assigned Pisces. Once again, when I was doing the assignments, it was more of an unconscious, spontaneous thing than me going, I think it should be Pisces. When I looked at it, I went, that's an interesting idea. And I see that Pisces energy is the need to retreat. By the way, this is very 12th house energy. Pisces has correspondence to the 12th house in astrology, being the 12th sign of the zodiac. This is a more modern invention, meaning about 150 years ago, this is when this happened, okay? And so, retreat, stepping back, to be able to have attachment, to get into our imago realm, our inner imagination, which is what our inner world is. And for me, I need to step back. I need solitude and quiet time, because I do not create when it's loud and bright and has all of the distractions. My nervous system is very sensitive, and so it cannot filter out as easily background noise. You know, my nervous system is sensitive. It is responding to all of that noise, trying to find a signal. And so Pisces makes more sense, because being able to withdraw from the world a little bit when I need to, and I always know, because my ticker, meaning my internal clock, starts to slow down, and then it just pauses in stillness. And when that happens, I know it's time for me to take a nice little hermit break and interact with the internal part of my world. And it's also how I get through work. I have a job still, and the whole point of that is to get out of that job to be more self-employed, and therefore have more agency and self-ownership and self-determination, as per my Mars placement and my Black Moon Lilith placements. But I still need to retreat to my inner realm, my hermit card, whilst at work, because I do my best work when I interact with the unconscious. Now, you also consider that this card is also overlaying a little bit of that collective unconscious over things. With Virgo there, the collective unconscious is not as present. When you put Piscean energy there, and therefore Neptune energy there, we're engaging with collective unconscious, which includes archetypal energies, for example, the mother, the hero, the protagonist, the villain, the antagonist, the student, etc., the free spirit. Those are our archetypes. Those are all collective archetypes in the collective unconscious, because you're going to see them in stories, and you will see them in all stories across all cultures all over the world for thousands of years. The eldest story we have found is 6,500 years old, and that's the story of which the blacksmith and what they call the devil, but it's like Devil and Daniel Webster, is a modern iteration of that particular story. And so that is my reasoning. In order to get in touch with my Pisces energy, or that part that Pisces rules in my own chart, I need to have the solitude. I need hermit energy. I need to step back. But let's contemplate the narrative. What if the hermit represents chosen alienation rather than temporary retreat? Now, chosen alienation makes me think Aquarius, makes me think Chiron, most certainly. And what if this card is about permanent outsider status, the one who cannot return to consensus reality after seeing too much? Now, here's a thing about the hero story. Most of these stories, you will note, have the hero doing just that. The hero, once he goes, and it's usually a he, but in modern times we're starting to see that there are she's and they's and etc. and z's and zers who also want to have adventures as well and see themselves as the protagonist in their own story, okay? So, permanent outsider status makes me think Aquarius, most certainly, and also makes me think of Chiron and Mercury as well. So, you can't return to the consensus reality. In most movies, the transformative arc will have the superhero. For example, in Black Adam, which is a Marvel story that ended up being a DC story and stars Dwayne Johnson, in that particular story that we see on the screen, he does end up alone. Why? Because he has powers and experiences that most people will never have and cannot have, because it takes a lot of discomfort to be able to stand with that kind of transformation. Transformation is not comfortable, which is why most people do not transform, because you have to sit with a great deal of discomfort to do it. Another example would also be Batman. Batman is a lone wolf. There's reason for that, because he's seen too much, felt too much, heard too much, thought too much, and so now he is outside. And you'll note in the Batman that features Heath Ledger, the Joker even points that out when they have one of their face-to-faces when he's at the, at the police station or wherever they're doing the interview. And so Batman ends up very much alone, like Black Adam and like most of the superheroes. For example, and also Doctor Strange, you'll notice that. So what I'm pointing out here is something you can see in stories and narratives, and will see in stories and narratives. The hero ends up alone because that change, that going through discomfort is transformative and alchemical, and it has changed this person into something that will not fit in neatly with what they left behind. And that's something most people, when they talk about these stories, never point out. They try to soften that blow. The fact is that change that makes you more authentic will then make you a stranger to those who think they know you best. So let's look a little bit more into personal exploration, because I really encourage it. So what have you experienced? When have you experienced true solitude? Where have you experienced it? Was it more of a Virgo-like energy, as in productive, refining, purposeful? Was it Saturnian, as in isolating, necessary, transformative through hardship? What correspondence honors your lived experience of withdrawal and wisdom seeking? I am okay. That's what's going on with that. Alrighty. Mild technical difficulties. And there we are. We're back. Wonderful. 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 Okay. So let's go on to the Wheel of Fortune. And Wheel of Fortune is Jupiter, or the inexorable cycles of fate. That's an interesting word choice there. But anyway, we're talking about the cycles of fate. Hence the term Wheel of Fortune, hence Jupiter. Okay? So let's review the Golden Dawn assignment. The Wheel of Fortune equals Jupiter, which is expansion, luck, benevolent fate, optimistic cycles, and growth through fortune's favor. Let's acknowledge the partial fit. Jupiter has an association with luck and fortune and captures one dimension of the wheel, only one. The moments when fate, what appears to be fate, that is, turns in our favor, when expansion and opportunity arrive unbidden. Let's question the optimism bias, shall we? The wheel also turns downward. It brings loss, reversal, humbling experiences, the recognition that we are not in control most of the time, and so does Jupiter, essentially, with its essential benevolent nature, obscure the wheel's darker and more personal dimension. Let's sit with that for a brief moment. Let's explore some alternatives, shall we? Uranus, as in sudden reversals, unexpected fate, the lightning strike of circumstance. The nodal axis, karmic cycles, destined encounters, evolutionary necessity. Pluto, fate as transformation, the wheel that crushes and remakes, or Saturn, time's wheel, the inevitability of consequence, karma as law rather than luck. Now, originally, I chose Venus, the lesser benefic, because most people see Venus as a card of love and beauty, and they think, oh, all the feels. The oodle, 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 oodle energy is what I call that. You know, so beautiful. Problem. That energy, so beautiful, is actually Neptune energy. Unconditional love is not Venusian energy. It's Neptunian energy. It is a consciousness shift, which is a very transpersonal outer planet thing, because outer planets talk about consciousness on a high, and when I say higher, I mean more of a broad stroke view of humanity and civilization rather than personal, unless, of course, it's connected to personal planets, at which point is shaping the expression of those planets. So, originally I chose Venus, and I thought, well, this makes sense, because it does speak in part to the fact that Venus is all no, no, no. Venus is not, yes, please, I'll have all of that. It's, no, I don't like that. Yes, I like this. No, I don't like that. Wait a second, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. So it's conditional. Venus energy is a personal planet, which makes this energy personal, subjective, and conditional, meaning certain thresholds need to be met in order for me to feel comfortable with this particular choice. So, Venus, as this card, it recognizes the darker part of the card by saying, Venus isn't, it's not a yes. To Neptune, it might be a yes, but to Venus, it's like, no, I don't like that type of thing. I don't like that color. I don't like those people. I don't do this thing. No, 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 no. That's how that energy actually is. So initially it made sense. But then I thought about cycles, and I thought about darkness, and I thought about the grief, and I thought, what planet best represents a cycle? And that is the moon. And so that is my current assessment, as I've said in previous episodes, but we'll reiterate here. This, for me, is never going to be set in stone. It's going to change and be fluid as I change, as I learn. It will learn and change with me. So, at first it was Venus. Now it is currently the moon. And the moon is all about cycles, but it also is about darkness. Why? Because darkness obscures things. It puts things in shadow. It also puts things in complete darkness where you cannot see anything and therefore cannot make sense of what you cannot see. It's unconscious means in the darkness. Shadow work is not darkness. It is what is put in a shadow. Please note that you can still see in shadows, because if you go out in the sun, you stand in the shadow. Are you suddenly invisible? No. Everybody can still see you. You're just in a shadow. It's a liminal state. And so the moon is liminal. It acknowledges darkness. It acknowledges cycles. And it does not pretend that everything is going to be beautiful and sweet and wonderful. It's like moon ebbs, it waxes and it wanes. It ebbs and it flows. And it recognizes the ebb and flow without overthinking it, without making it sacred or divine. It is as it is. And so that is why I chose the moon, changed it from Venus to the moon. Now, let's go a little deeper into the philosophical dimension. And here's the question. Is fate benevolent? That's Jupiter. Jupiter's benevolence. Fate being the wheel. They should really call this the fate card, but I get why, or destiny, but I get why they didn't. The wheel just sounds, I don't know, more sexy to a ceremonial mage, which is what these people were. Or let's move on to neutral. So Saturn and the nodes. Or is it transformative? Pluto and Uranus. Your correspondence choices reveals your metaphysical stance on free will, destiny, and the nature of cosmic justice, which would be card 11, which will be coming up. Okay? And so, let's invite a little experimentation into this. I suggest working with the wheel as Uranus or the nodes, or for a lunar cycle, or, like I said, any of the planets. So you can keep it as Jupiter, keep it as neutral with Saturn in the nodes, transform it as Pluto and Uranus. Do so for a lunar cycle. That's one. And notice, does it sharpen your readings around sudden change, about timing? When they say karmic timing, we're talking about consequences, cause and effect, basically, not that you've done something wrong. And does it speak, when we speak about the cosmic, change is the only constant in the cosmos, and so this card speaks about that change and the fact that sometimes things absolutely do arrive outside of our control. And so we also want to ask about the tension between what looks like fate and free will. Does it feel more honest during the times when we are, when we are in not in a flow state, when we're in an ebb state? Alrighty, so let's move on to Justice card. That's number 11 after 10. So the Hermit's 9, the Wheel of Fortune is 10, Justice is the 11 card. And to start, the Fool is 0, and then the Mage would be 1, High Priestess 2, Empress 3, and so on, until we get to this card, which is the Justice card. Now, Justice equals Libra, or the radical rebalancing of power. So, let's review the Golden Dawn assignment. Justice equals Libra, fairness, balance, harmony through right relationship, cardinal air, diplomatic equilibrium. So, let me affirm this resonance. Let me affirm the resonance. Libra's association with justice does feel natural. The scales, the weighing, the commitment to fairness, the right relationship, all align with Libra's essential nature. But I want to push further, and I encourage you to do the same. Libra also seeks harmony at any cost, avoiding conflict to maintain relationships. Is justice truly about diplomatic balance, or is it about radical accountability, uncomfortable truth-telling, the restoration of right order even when it disrupts peace? Let's explore some alternatives. How about Saturn? As in consequence, karmic law, justice as accountability rather than harmony. How about Pluto? Justice as the dismantling of corrupt systems, transformation through truth. How about the asteroid Pallas Athene, as in strategic wisdom, legal intelligence, warrior justice, or Vixstad Spiker? Justice as divine grace, harvest of what is being sown, and I've assigned Aries, and here is my reasoning. This is all very lovely. Libra's very mental cardinal air energy. Lovely, lovely, lovely. We need thinkers, but guess what we also need? Doers. People who get their bum in the game, who put their feet to the ground, keep their eyes to the stars to navigate, but they're doing. And Aries energy, it's like jumping in the game. Now, here's the downside of this energy. It can be impulsive, and it can be disruptive. But here we're not trying to create harmony at all costs. We're not trying to create peace at all costs. We are trying to get it going. And imperfect action trumps, even if it's impulsive, trumps perfect, mental, airy, breezy, rationalized equilibrium and harmony and peace every single time, hence the choice. Now, let's move on to the political dimension. Justice can be read as status quo maintenance, Libran balance within existing systems. Or can we read it as revolutionary reordering, Saturnian, Plutonian, dismantling of unjust structures? So, which correspondence supports your vision of what justice actually requires in the moment? By the way, Uranus could work as well. in here, in this particular card, Uranus could work. Also, Aquarius could also work, because we're looking at the outsiders, the misfits, the people who do not benefit as easily through the way the system operates. We're not trying to maintain the status quo. We're trying to pummel it to death, okay? And so some of these other choices, Aries, Mars, would be also a good choice, in addition to Pluto and Saturn, and also I would suggest Uranus and Aquarius as well. So let's encourage some lived inquiry or inquiry. When we have, so when have we and where experienced true justice? So was it Libra-like? Was it diplomatic, balanced, harmonious resolution? Was it more Saturnine? Consequences finally arriving? Plutonian, systemic change through crises? Was it Pallas-touched, strategic wisdom prevailing? Let your lived experience guide your correspondence. And it may not at all look like mine or what the Golden Dawn suggested initially. As a matter of fact, it doesn't. Looking into it and questioning is part of the exercise, which is what we want to do here. We don't want to just pick something just because everybody's doing it and everybody says it's right. We want to make certain it matches what our intentions are and how we are and how our psyche and native OS naturally operate. In my case, I cannot accept things as they are, because as they are usually doesn't work for me. The system's not set up or built for someone like myself to thrive and to be prosperous, and so I must create my own systems. I encourage everybody to do that. And so we're going to move on to how to create your own correspondences and do so practically. So step one, you're always going to sit with the card. You're going to meditate, journal, pull it repeatedly. Notice the planet, the sign, the archetype that keeps appearing in your intuition and synchronicities as you go through life. You may also put it on an altar where you can see it all the time, because that's what I like to do. Out of sight, out of mind is how I operate natively, and so it's best for me to have cards where I can see them so I can interact with that energies on the daily. Step two, search for alternatives. Look beyond the Golden Dawn to other systems. You might look at Marseille, Tote, modern psychological tarot, astrology. You might look at fixed stars, evolutionary astrology, political and liberation focused readings. You want to see what resonates with you. Step three, test in practice. Use your experimental correspondences for about 1 to 3 lunar cycles and notice if it deepens in the interpretation, if it clarifies timing, if it feels more alive than the traditional placement. The traditional placement is always going to be there if needed as scaffolding, but you might as well explore safely whilst you've got the time and the energy. Next, step 4, you're going to document your system, write down your personal correspondences, your reasoning, your lived experience with them, and this becomes your own codex, your own living tarot astrology compendium. Step 5, share and discuss. That means you bring your alternative correspondences to trusted study groups, trusted communities, trusted practitioners, and you only allow because intellectual discourse sharpens tuition and reveals blind spots, and here's the caveat, you only want to do it with people you can feel safe with. If they are this type of people who are a bit snappy, and you can't trust them, choose people who are wise yet safe to share with. Step 6, this is new, you want to return to tradition with fresh new eyes. So after experimenting with these alternatives, you can revisit the Golden Dawn assignment, and sometimes rebellion, meaning thinking dangerously and differently, clarifies what was valuable in the original. Sometimes it confirms your need to diverge permanently. Alrighty, so we want to emphasize here, this is not about discarding tradition, it's about engaging with it critically, respectfully, courageously, because the best occultists are always heretics. Rebellion is a sacred act when done with intention and integrity. And here we are, thank you very much for listening, and the key takeaway here is that the Hermit, the Wheel of Fortune, and the Justice cards carry potent energies that may or may not be fully captured by Virgo, Jupiter, and Libra. And so your tarot practice deepens when you dare to question, experiment, and to build correspondences from embodied wisdom, lived experience, and your own metaphysical and political and social commitments. So, people-based, value-based, ethical, etc. And so, choose one of these three cards, Hermit, Wheel, and Justice, and spend the week working with an alternative correspondence. Note what shifts in your readings, your relationship to solitude, to fate, to accountability, your connection to the card's living intelligence. Okay? And the next episode will be 158, and we will be discussing the Hanged One, Death and Temperance. And we're going to imagine sacrifice, transformation, and alchemy through contemporary astrological correspondences that honor complexity, shadow, and radical change. And lastly, we have the Daily Stargazer newsletter, free and paid. You can find the written, condensed versions of these podcast episodes on the newsletter, available for free in case you'd rather read rather than listen, or you want to read and listen. Okay, and thank you very much for listening. Until next time, keep your feet on the ground and your eyes to the stars, and peace and astro magic, star people.